Just give me a minute while I confirm the stream. Okay, we are in gallery view. I'll start the recordings the minute we switch out of gallery view. Okay. All right. Good morning. Welcome to New York City Council's remote subcommittee hearing on landmarks, public sightings, and dispositions. Everyone, please turn on your videos at this time. Silence all electronic devices. All written testimony can be submitted to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you. Chair Lewis, we're ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Farrah Lewis, Chair of the Committee on Landmarks, Public Sightings, and Dispositions. I am joined today by my colleagues, Council Members Feliz, Ang, and Marte. Today we will vote on LU 52, the Sutter Place NCP project, and hold public hearings on LUs 61 and 62 for the EMS station new facility, and LUs 67, 68, 69, 70, and 71 for the Resilient Edgeme project. Before we begin, I recognize the Subcommittee Council to explain today's hearing procedures.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I am Jeffrey Campagna, counsel to this subcommittee. Members of the public who wish to testify were asked to register for today's hearing. If you registered to testify and are not yet signed into Zoom, please sign in now and remain signed in until after you have testified. If you wish to testify and have not registered, please go to www.council.nyc.gov/land-use to sign up now. If you're not planning to testify on today's items, please watch the hearing on the New York City Council website. All people testifying before the subcommittee will be on mute until they are recognized to testify. Please confirm that your mic is unmuted before you begin speaking. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. If you have written testimony you would like the subcommittee to consider in addition to or in lieu of appearing before the subcommittee, or if you require an accessible version of a presentation given at today's meeting, please email landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number or project name in the subject line of the email. During the hearing, council members who would like to ask questions should use the Zoom raise hand function. The raise hand button should appear at the bottom of the participant panel. I will announce council members who have questions in the orders that they raise their hands. Witnesses are reminded to remain in the meeting until they are excused by the chair. Lastly, there may be extended pauses if we encounter technical problems. We ask that you please be patient as we work through these issues. Chair Lewis will now continue with today's agenda.
Thank you. And we've also been joined by Council Members Vernikoff, Stevens, and Nurse. Today, we will begin with a vote on LU 52 for the Sutter Place NCP project, which we heard at our meeting on May 11th. This application was submitted by the Department of Housing and Preservation and Development pursuant to Article 16 of the General Municipal Law in Section 197C of the New York City Charter, requesting designation of an urban development action, approval and urban development action area project for such area, and approval of the disposition of city-owned property to a developer to be selected by HPD. This action would facilitate the development of 4 buildings containing approximately 46 affordable housing units and a commercial space on property located at 492-496 Gilmore Avenue, Block 3725, lots 12 and 13, as well as 2358-2363 Picken Avenue, Block 4015, lots 22, 23, and 24, and 943 Dumont Avenue, Block 406, lot 52, and 743 Blake Avenue, Block 3775, Lot 150, in the Brooklyn Council Districts represented by Councilmembers Nurse and Barron. Does Councilmember Nurse want to provide any remarks? I know she's underground right now. She's commuting still. And Councilmember Barron, good morning.
I'm sorry, Chair, that's not possible at this moment. I'll have to come back on.
All right, I'm gonna call on Councilmember Barron, who is here and would like to provide remarks. Good morning, Councilmember.
Good morning, Chair. And I just want to thank my partner, Councilmember Sandy Nurse. This was a long negotiating process. The project didn't start off as what we wanted it to be, but when you hold on to your principles and you're prioritizing your community and affordability and use the authority and power that you have in the City Council, you can get a 100% affordable project. This is 100% affordable. 50% of the AMI, a percentage at that, and 40 down to 30. And where could you go to get a 3-bedroom apartment for less than $1,000 a month? And those kinds of categories. So this is 100% affordable. I want to thank Sandy Nurse and my staff and her staff for reaching this conclusion. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And we support it 1,000%.
We thank you and Councilmember Nurse for your leadership on this project. With the support of the local council members, I now call for a vote to approve LU 52. Council, please call the roll.
Lewis.
I vote aye.
Feliz. Councilmember Feliz. See if he'll unmute.
Aye.
Councilmember Marte.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Nurse.
Aye.
Councilmember Ung.
Aye.
And Minority Leader Vernikov. Minority Whip Vernikov.
Good morning. Not Minority Leader, yeah. I vote aye.
By a vote of 6 in the affirmative with 0 in the negative and 0 abstentions, the item is approved and recommended to the full Land Use Committee, and the vote will be held open.
Thank you so much and congratulations, Councilmembers Barron and Nurse. We've also been joined by Majority Whip Brooks Powers. We continue now with the first public hearing on LU 61 and LU 62, 2 applications related to the EMS Station 17 new facility submitted by the Department of Administrative Services, and FDNY LU 61 relates to an application that was submitted pursuant to the section 197C of the charter, requesting approval of a site selection of property located at 1257 Morris Avenue, block 2450, lot 42, in the Bronx for use as an ambulance station. LU 62 relates to an application that was submitted pursuant to sections 197C and 201 of the New York City Charter for the grant of a special permit pursuant to section 76-67 of the zoning resolution to allow an FDNY emergency medical services station use in a residence district. These actions would facilitate the construction of a proposed 2-story EMS station building on property located in a R7-1 district located at 1257 Morris Avenue in the Bronx Council District represented by Councilmember Stevens. Is Councilmember Stevens available to provide remarks?
She is here.
Good morning, Councilmember Stevens. The floor is yours.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me here today. I am here and excited to be here, but just had a few questions that I thought that we should bring up as far as a lot of the community concerns with this EMS station regarding noise, parking, and quality of life for residents. And so I just think that it's important that when we're making these decisions, that we're making them in a holistic way that does not impact the community in a very negative way, especially when we have 2 EMS sites in very close proximity to the one that they're alleging to build. And some of the questions I have, I just would like to make sure that we have answers before we move forward, because quality of life for my residents is my top and #1 priority.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Stevens, for your remarks. Council Majority Brooks Powers has to hop off at 10:30. Did you want to, is it okay for her to provide her remarks in advance?
Yes, she can provide her remarks in advance if she wants to address the resilient Edgemere. Now, if she has to leave now.
Thank you, Chair. I'll also ask my questions and hope that they're answered at the appropriate time. But good morning, everyone. Thank you once again to our Chair, Councilmember Lewis, and the committee staff for facilitating today's hearing. I'd like to speak on the items being heard today concerning the resilient Edgemere zoning proposal led by HPD.
Majority Whip, you went on mute.
Thank you. Led by HPD. The plan includes significant changes to the fabric of Edgemere, including significant downzoning near the Jamaica Bay coastline to minimize damage caused by future floods, infill zoning and the establishment of a community land trust in central Edgemere, and upzoning along Rockaway Beach Boulevard to facilitate new development and boost commercial activity. I am encouraged by some components of this plan, particularly the measures that will make our community more resilient to coastal flooding. However, I have serious concerns which are shared by many of my constituents. Last night, I hosted a town hall where Edgemere residents received another presentation from HPD and had the chance to share their perspectives on the project and submit feedback. It was a valuable session, and I'm glad to have had the opportunity to hear directly from constituents in advance of this hearing to ensure that their voices are heard. This project does not currently have the support of the community. Community Board 14 unanimously disapproved the proposal. However, despite points of opposition, there was space to make improvements, including downzoning for resiliency, ensuring 100% homeownership, as HPD had committed previously, but most importantly, better infrastructure investments, including road widening and building a trauma center hospital in the area. With that said, I look forward to today's hearing and hope to hear from members of the public who have signed up to testify. Some of the questions that I'd like to get a response from include, could you describe the regulations, what regulations apply in the proposed special coastal risk district and how these will improve resiliency? What proportion of the scattered sites in the HMA will be open space as opposed to new housing? Has there been engagement with homeowners in the HMA and LDA areas about the potential community land trust? Questions around density that I have. What is the total number of new housing units projected from this rezoning? How many of these units are on HPD controlled sites where there are communities for 100% affordability? The increased density in this proposal is in the proposed HPD UDAP project sites, but also the block between Beach 49th and 50th Streets, which is privately owned. Why was this block chosen to be rezoned to a R6A? Will HPD engage with the community before drafting the RFP for the UDAP sites, and what kind of commitments can HPD make regarding proposal requirements such as specific type of community facilities? The community board has expressed a clear preference for home ownership, affordable housing. Can HPD commit to affordable home ownership co-ops as part of the UDAP project sites? And finally, I just have a few questions around infrastructure, which include what investments is the city making to deal with stormwater and high tide related flooding in Edgemere? Have DOT, DEP, SCA, and the Parks Department committed to new infrastructure investments to support thousands of new residents in Edgemere coming from the Edgemere Commons, Arvin East, and potentially this proposal as well? And how is HPD coordinating with the other agencies? HPD worked with DOT on a transportation study in the Rockaways that was published in 2019. What projects from that study, especially widening Edgemere Avenue from Beach 32nd to Beach 56, has the administration committed to funding, and on what timeline? And since the closing of Peninsula Hospital, the Rockaways are now underserved, especially for acute and trauma care. What commitments is the city making to bring additional healthcare services to the community? And those are the questions. I look forward to hearing responses on the record from HPD. Thank you again, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Majority Whip. We are joined today by David Harney, Jeremy Brooks, and Irma Fontaine from the Fire Department. Council, please administer the affirmation.
Please raise your right hands and respond when I call your names. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee in response to all council member questions? David Harney.
I do. I do.
There are two. Who is here? I see a David Harney and a David Harney. Please state your names. You who are holding your hand up, what is your name?
Jeremy Brooks.
Thank you. We may continue with the agenda.
No worries. If you have a PowerPoint presentation, it will be displayed when you request it. You all may begin.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you this morning and the members of the subcommittee. My name is David Harney. I am the Chief of Staff to the Deputy Fire Commissioner for Support Services. The application before you this morning, land use ULIP number P2018X310 is for site selection, acquisition, and for a special permit. So the fire department might relocate EMS Station 17 from its current site at 1080 Ogden Avenue to 1270 Morris Avenue in Bronx Community Board 4. And so a community center might be built at the site of the existing EMS station. If you would please put up our presentation, I can walk the committee through our proposal. Okay, next slide, please. In 1996, the city's emergency medical services function was merged into the fire department. One of the merger's goals was to increase the number of EMS support facilities citywide. By increasing the number of EMS stations, we'd be able to reduce ambulance out of service times and keep these units available in their response areas longer. You must remember, back in 1996, EMS only had 16 stations citywide, with only 3 to service the entire Bronx. However, today, our Bureau of EMS Operations has 40 EMS stations, of which 10 are in the Bronx. Next slide, please. Next, it's important to understand EMS operations does not function in the same manner as fire operations. In fire operations, fire companies leave their firehouse in an emergency response capacity with lights and sirens and travel to their assigned incident. When the incident is concluded, they return to their firehouse to await their next assigned call. However, EMS operates differently and uses a strategy known as dynamic deployment. Here, ambulances leave the station mostly in a non-emergency capacity, no lights, no sirens, and travel to pre-designated street corner locations known as Adams. Next slide, please. From these Adams, units are dispatched to medical emergencies. Also, as in most EMS incidents, the EMS unit must then transport patients to area hospitals. After a patient has been transferred to a hospital staff, the EMS unit may return to their Adam or may need to go out of service and return to their station to restock supplies, decontaminate the ambulance compartment or themselves, or for administrative reasons. Out of service times affect ambulance availability. So by increasing the number of EMS stations, we reduce out of service time, and greater in-service time equates to lower emergency medical response times. Next slide, please. So in terms of EMS Station 17, it's currently located at 1080 Ogden Avenue in Bronx Community Board 4. The building is the former quarters of Engine 68. The company was housed here until a new firehouse was built along with Ladder 49 in 1979. For approximately 20 years, the building was used by our building maintenance division as a storage facility. But in 1997, after the merger, the building was renovated and became EMS Station 17. Meanwhile, the building is most probably, we don't have an exact date, over a century old. And this 3-story wood frame structure is the only building of its type remaining in the agency's facility inventory. Next slide, please. In 2018, the agency performed a structural review of the building. Here we conclude the facility had exceeded its useful life. Specifically, the apparatus floor, as you can see on the right, has a significant number of cracks and open joints at the garage door threshold. Rainwater and melting snow has also entered the building's structural system, as you can see in the photo on the bottom right of the basement. And this has been exacerbated by vehicle and equipment decontamination work. To that end, and over the past few years, the agency has conducted a variety of remedial efforts to slow the building's deterioration as plans are developed to replace this important facility. Next slide, please. With funding support from City Hall to replace this facility, in 2019, the agency selected the vacant parcel at 1257 Morris Avenue as the optimal site for new EMS Station 17. And here on the right, you can see photos of the vacant lot. Also located on Bronx Community Board 4, the parcel, which is under the agency's jurisdiction, measures approximately 15,000 square feet and is adjacent to the quarters of Engine 92, Ladder 44. Here, the agency, working with the Department of Design and Construction, plans to build a two-story, approximately 11,700 square foot facility with below-grade parking for the station staff to serve as the new home for EMS Station 17. Next slide, please. While this project was slowed by COVID-19, in December, the City Planning Commission certified the Fire Department, Department of Citywide Administrative Services, Uniform Land Use Review Procedure for this important project. The proposed facility will have interior parking for 6 ambulances with 1 additional bay for vehicle decontamination. Other areas of the proposed main floor include offices for the on-duty lieutenant, storage areas for vehicle supplies, oxygen, advanced and basic life support ambulance, medical supplies, and what we mean by advanced versus basic. Advanced life support ambulance, or what we call ALS ambulances, they're staffed by paramedics, while BLS ambulance, basic life support, they're staffed by EMTs. There'll be an elevator, a ready room, an eye wash decontamination station, and an ADA compliant restroom. Next slide, please. The proposed facility's second floor has an office for the station's captain, male and female locker rooms, bathrooms, a stress reduction room, which is a nice name for a gym, a training area, an outdoor terrace, a lactation room for EMS members who are also nursing mothers, space for security and telecommunications equipment, several other storage areas, the building's mechanical systems, elevator controls, and custodial plaza. Finally, the proposed building's cellar will have off-street parking for 21 personal vehicles and a bicycle rack, so there is no impact on on-street parking. Meanwhile, the members of Engine 92, Ladder 44, will continue to have off-street parking on the remaining portion of the existing lot. Next slide, please. We also want to talk about the green elements that we're very excited about putting into this proposed facility. For more than a decade, the fire department has been at the forefront of the use of green energy. Across our portfolio of more than 400 buildings, we continue to retrofit aging or costly utility systems with sustainable ones, such as green roofs, solar voltaic electrical or solar hot water systems, LED lighting, geothermal heating systems, or natural lighting. The proposed new quarters for EMS Station 17 is no different, as it is designed to be LEED Silver to comply with Local Law 86 of 2005, as installing a green roof in compliance with Local Law 92 and 94 of 2019. If you just wait for a moment, you see the FDNY green logo. That is on our ambulances, all our ambulances, and I'll discuss that in a moment. The lower image, that is of the glass roof we installed on top of the new quarters of Rescue 2 in Brooklyn to provide natural light into the firehouse to reduce the need for powered lighting. Next slide, please. In order to achieve LEED certification, the project relies heavily on improving the indoor environment by monitoring carbon dioxide in densely occupied spaces, selecting low-emitting materials, managing potential sources of indoor air contamination during construction, and performing a flush out of the HVAC systems after construction to ensure a contaminant-free system. Next, in compliance with the Executive Order 395 of 2013, the proposed project will also achieve a Design for Active Occupants LEED credit, which promotes occupant health by encouraging stair use. Next slide, please. And here you see the two images. These are two existing fire department facilities where we're already utilizing not only green roofs, but solar water heating systems. The vegetated green roof is now a requirement for all new city buildings, and the system captures stormwater, while the proposed building will include stormwater detention tank to help reduce the New York City's combined sewer overflow during most rain events. Meanwhile, construction materials will be locally sourced and durable to ensure an extended lifespan. Finally, all in-building equipment will be energy efficient, have Energy Star ratings. For example, cooking will be performed by electric fed stoves instead of natural gas, which is a non-renewable fossil fuel. Next slide, please. We also want to talk about, and I mentioned this before, the ambulance green elements. Ambulances need electric power to operate vital medical equipment, agency radios, mobile data terminals, and to maintain ambient temperatures for both medicines, patient care, and in both the crew cab and patient bay. Historically, this has required ambulance engines to remain idling while the EMS crew is stationed at their ATM while waiting for assignment to medical emergencies. One ambulance for every hour of idling burns about 1.5 gallons of gas, diesel fuel, emits about 33 pounds of carbon dioxide, and puts between 35 and 50 miles worth of wear and tear on vehicle engines. Next slide, please. Several years ago, the agency had planned to install a charging station at EMS Adams. Here, the crew would have been able to plug the ambulance into the charging dock and then be able to turn off the engine while powering all systems. However, industry technology superseded this plan, and now the agency utilized an onboard system called Stealth Power. And here you see our original design for the charging stations and what the Stealth Power unit looks like, which is located in the back of the ambulance. This system provides power for all electrical equipment: air, heat, lights, laptops, radios, refrigerators, windows, electric stretchers, without turning on the ambulance engine. While initial charge can maintain a vehicle for more than 4 hours, the system also recharges itself when the vehicle is being driven. And this has dramatically led to reductions in our use of fossil fuels and burning fossil, and reduction in engine hours, which helps us in the back end that we're not replacing engine motors on a regular basis. Next slide, please. Currently, about 75% of our 700 ambulances are equipped with this system. All future ambulance purchases will be equipped with this green technology. The agency also has completed specification of them and will soon receive its first emergency medical response vehicle equipped with solar panels. This new system will also support the vehicle's electrical needs while not requiring the engine to idle. As such, this will further reduce carbon emissions by our ambulance fleet and the amount of engine wear and tear. Next slide, please. So now we'll get to the good part of the facility. Here you see the floor plan for the main floor of the proposed ambulance station. As you look on the top of the floor plan, and on the right side, you see the outdoor parking spaces for the members of Engine 92 and Ladder 44. Then you see the proposed building, which has BLS storage, a ready room, the apparatus for the washing station, the lieutenant's office, the oxygen, and other supply areas. Next slide, please. On the proposed second floor, you can see the men's and women's locker and bathrooms, the mechanical equipment areas, the captain's office, the security telecom, the gym, the training area, the dining room, and the outdoor terrace, as well as the staircases. Next slide, please. Meanwhile, most importantly, here in the basement, you can see the 21 parking spaces and bicycle rack we have proposed to build as part of this proposed facility, so we're not competing with local residents for on-street parking. Next slide, please.
Mr. Harnett?
Yes, ma'am.
We actually have this entire presentation, so if you wanted to transition to the next part, we could.
Okay, well, very quickly, we can just roll through. We can roll through the elevation slides very quickly. Next slide, please. You see the front of the proposed front of the building. Looking at it from a north to south view with Engine 92 Ladder 44 on the right. Here you see the building looking north with the entrance to the garage, the proposed facility, Engine 92 Ladder 44. And again looking south along the sidewalk. Next, please. Okay, so the proposed action, the agency with DCAS submitted a ULIP action in January. This was for site selection, but because EMS stations are not allowed as of right in the R7 zoning district, part of this action is a request that a special permit be provided by the City Planning Commission for this proposed project. Meanwhile, the proposed station will comply with all applicable bulk height setback regulations, as well as parking requirements in an R7 district. Next slide, please. The proposed action was approved by Bronx Community Board 4 on February 22nd, then by the Bronx Borough President on March 22nd. The City Planning Commission then reviewed and approved this proposed action on April 27th. With the council's approval of this proposed action, the long-term plan for the EMS station's current location is to be transformed into a community center to support the city's borough-based jails program. However, this important effort cannot commence until the proposed EMS station is built. Next slide, please. So the fire department believes this proposed new facility is important because it will enhance the agency's EMS capabilities within Bronx Community Board 4, not contribute to traffic parking along Ogden Avenue, provide our EMS staff with a state-of-the-art facility while moving them out of an old structurally failing building, not impact parking and traffic along Marshall Avenue after it's built, and create space for a community center. As such, the fire department respectfully requests the City Council Subcommittee support this proposed action. And with that, next slide, please. We'll be happy to take anyone's question. And I appreciate the council's time, and please forgive me for running over.
No worries. Thank you so much for your presentation. Are there any council members that have questions? I know Councilmember Stevens does.
If there are any council members who have questions, please use the raise hand button now. And Councilmember Stevens, if you would like to begin.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I couldn't raise my hand. I couldn't find the raise hand feature. I'm so sorry. I'm a mess this morning. Good morning, and thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Chair, for having this hearing, and thank you, FDNY, for being here. And I just want to go on record for saying is like I am very aware of this project, and even the community center, as I was one of the community members on the NAP that fought to get the community center to be there. But I still have quite a few concerns, and I just have a couple of questions I would love to ask to just get clarity and make sure that we are able to put systems in place that will hold people accountable if there does become an issue in the community. So given the high number of FDNY facilities in the surrounding areas, could your team explain the rationale for choosing this location for the new EMS facility? And what makes the facility different than other FDNY facilities in the area?
Councilman, please forgive me. You broke up at the end. Would you repeat that, please?
I said, can you given the high number of FDNY facilities in the surrounding areas, could your team please explain on the rationale for choosing this location for the new EMS facilities, and what makes this facility different than the other facilities in the area?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. First and foremost, the agency chose this location for a variety of reasons. One, because it would not affect the relocation of the existing facility, would not affect the call value of the response times and the drive times of the existing EMS units that are coming out of Station 17, in terms of the units leaving their cross relocation and leaving their facility and going to their cross relocations at Adams. The agency also chose this location because the property was under the fire department's jurisdiction, and thereby saving the city a considerable amount of money in terms of property acquisition. So from an operational perspective and a financial perspective, this was a win-win for the agency. As in terms of being different from other facilities, as I noted in my presentation, this will be a state-of-the-art facility that we're very proud of because of all the new components that we're putting into it, but also to, in terms of putting off-street parking in for the members, so we're not competing with local area residents for on-street parking, which we know is an issue citywide. Now we're doing our best to address those. The proposed project will still ensure that the firefighters assigned to Engine 92, Ladder 44, continue to have off-street parking, while the members of the proposed EMS station will have off-street parking as well. So for these reasons, we're very excited about this proposed project.
So, but like one of my major issues and questions have been is like, I know that they're like, we put off-street parking, there's a parking lot, but when in every facility that you see across the city, there's literally EMS trucks parked outside all of those facilities. They are still, a lot of times folks still park on the street, and those things will affect the quality of life. So how are you going to make sure that staff who are coming there are using the facilities, that EMS trucks are not parked on the street blocking up traffic, because that is a serious issue, especially when I said there's literally 2 other facilities that do it currently. And this is Morris Avenue, which is a very busy street, which has one of the only bus routes that go up through that location, and that could stop up traffic. And I know that was taken into consideration, and just to say like, oh, it won't happen, it's already happening at other sites. So how are we really going to hold folks accountable to make sure this is not happening?
Well, thank you for your question, Councilwoman. The deployment methodology that EMS uses, again, that we do carry a several number of spares that will be in the station, but there is adequate room within the facility, the way we have designed the proposed facility, so that we will alleviate ambulances being parked out on the street because there is not the room within the station. You have to realize that, again, EMS operations does not operate like fire operations. In fire operations, tour change occurs at 9 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night. EMS tour change because we have to maintain a presence on the street at all times. EMS tour change happens over several hours, so the amount of activity and the amount of vehicles being parked at the station is very minimum. And we've designed the facility with enough space to handle not only units coming in and out for tour change.
It matches response times, but with using the added model, they're already at designated corners.
Someone speaking?
No, I'm sorry. I was hearing you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone else is speaking. I apologize. But again, we've designed the proposed facility with enough space to maintain off-street parking for spare ambulances that are off-service, but also to account for ambulances during our tour change matrix, which will happen, in the morning between say 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., where you would see one ambulance going in and out, and maybe 2 ambulances going in and out of the course of an hour. So there's enough space within the proposed facility for the ambulances to go into the station and to not park on the street at any time.
And I hear you, but what I'm saying to you is, and this has been my issue, is like, I feel like every time I have a question, you guys give me a manual book response. But the reality is, when I say the reality, even when I talked about the units that put their sirens on consistently at night, because I lived up the block from one of the units that's close to this facility now, it was like, that's not the protocol, but those things are happening. And so how do we make sure that we're mitigating these things and actually being proactive and not just saying like, that is not what they're supposed to be doing, when I'm saying currently at some of the other locations, those things are happening. And so my issue and my confidence is low, because if your response to me every time I have a question is that's not what's supposed to be happening, and I'm telling you what's happening at other locations, how do I then have faith that this is going to not happen at this location?
Well, I think that's something that we'll bring back and look at in detail, and it will be okay, Councilmember. We'd like to get back to you with a more official response, if that would be okay.
No, absolutely. Because these are the questions that I have. I mean, and I guess the last question I have is just like, given the quality of life issues that come with a FDNY 24-hour public service operation, can you please discuss the mitigating efforts that the FDNY will commit in order to mitigating any disruptions to the area? I mean, and I hear you're saying, you guys have the parking or whatever, but like, how are we going to make sure that this does not affect the quality of life, slowing up the bus service? And I guess you're saying that you're going to have to come back to me with those answers. But like I said, my main concern is, I asked a question, you guys tell me what's in the manual. However, I'm telling you that's not happening at the current locations. That's less than a mile away. And I'm not so it's not giving me confidence. Like, I want to support this project. It makes sense. I get it. But like, if these quality of life issues, let's be clear, the residents are going to call my office with them. Right? And so like, then I'm going to have to then deal with it. So I need to have the confidence that there's an actual plan to make sure that these things are not happening, and that you're thinking about the residents there in a very effective way. Because like I said, at every one of these locations, which are all like 2 to 3 miles away, literally ambulance are parked on the street. They're blocking up traffic. There's multiple cars. Not only are the trucks taking up parking, they're blocking up the bus traffic. Their cars are out there. And even with, having a parking lot and those things, I am not confident that folks will still not abuse some of the privileges that they have as far as just kind of taking over the whole block.
So, unfortunately, Jeremy, go ahead.
Thanks everybody for taking the time today. Truly appreciate it, and we definitely hear your concerns. One of the things that we can say and we can do is work with our EMS operations people to have something come from them to the station itself and to other stations where you feel like there is that concern, and we could reiterate to them what the protocol is. And while yes, it is in our books and what's supposed to be done, like you said, sometimes things do not occur the way they are. So what we will do, we will converse with our EMS operations to have something come from the head EMS chief to the stations to reiterate what our program and policy is. And for the captains of those stations to also reiterate that to their members to be facilitated down. And when there is issues, then we can address them at those times.
Additionally, council member, if I might add, the existing station on Ogden Avenue is a former firehouse, which only has off-street parking for 2 vehicles. The proposed EMS station is more than 3 times that, has parking for 6 plus 1 in the decontamination bay. So we have drastically increased the amount of off-street parking for our ambulances in the proposed facility as compared to the existing facility.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the existing facility because I know that it's a total nightmare because it's extremely small. Ogden Avenue is just not a good location for it. I'm talking about there's an FDM1 site on Portland Avenue. There's an FDM site on Boston Road. And if you go over there, you will see all of the vehicles are out. There's cars parked diagonal. Buses are often stuck stuck in traffic there because of the way they have their cars parked. It's a total nightmare. And like I said before, even with the Portland, they have their sirens blaring all the time. And then it's like, oh, that's not what they're supposed to do. But I know because I lived up the block from there and it's a constant thing. And so, like I said, the issue is, I know that those are the protocols, but those things are not being in place currently. And so to add another one on top of that, will change the quality of life dramatically in this community. And, I just want to make sure that we are making every effort to not really disenfranchise the community here already, right? Like we already have a lot going on here. And so I understand the movement of it. I know Ogden Avenue is not a place for it. I want to support this project, but those questions need to be answered. And even as far as the issues that we have at the current sites, those need to be answered as well. And so my confidence level is just not as high as it needs to be for me to give the 100% support because, like I said, I keep getting a manual answer when I'm telling you these things are happening and those aren't even being addressed.
So I just want to step in, Mr. Harney and Mr. Brooks. I hope you hear the concerns of Councilmember Stevens. She's trying to circumvent a potential issue regarding quality of life. What I recommend is that you all meet and have a conversation, come up with a real solution and strategy to address what she's asking for. If you need the support of this committee, if you need the support of the council member, you should have a strategy ready in order to address the concerns that she's mentioning. So I don't want you all to keep going back and forth. The council member has made it loud and clear. She wants a better response. So I hope you all can provide that as soon as possible.
No, of course, and we appreciate the council members' concerns and all the community's concerns. And we will do a better job of reiterating this to the stations as well, a better ground presence to let the station know and the members know going forward that this is something that can't occur. And we will talk to our EMS operations people about reiterating all this to their field units.
All right, please schedule a meeting with the council member before the vote so that we can have a sincere conversation about strategy. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all.
Very good.
Council, is there any members of the public that wish to ask questions?
First, I'll ask if there are any other council member questions. Seeing none, there are no members of the public signed up to testify on this item.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other members of the public who wish to testify on LU 61 and 62, the EMS Station 17 new facility project, the public hearing on this item is now closed. We will now move on to today's other public hearings. I now open the public hearings on LUs 67, 68, 69, and 70 and 71 for the Resilient Edgemere Community Initiative, all submitted by the Department of Housing and Preservation and Development. LU 67 is a request for an amendment to the zoning map submitted pursuant to sections 197C and 201 of the charter. LU 68 requests approval of an amendment to the text of the zoning resolution submitted pursuant to sections 201 of the charter. LU 69 requests approval of the proposed disposition of city-owned property submitted pursuant to sections 197C of the charter for uses identified in the Edgemere Urban Renewal Plan. LU 70 requests the designation of an urban development action area and approval of an urban development action area project for such area pursuant to Article 16 of the General Municipal Law and Section 197C of the Charter. And LU 71 requests approval of the Second Amendment of the Edgemere Urban Renewal Plan pursuant to Sections 505 of Article 15 of the General Municipal Law and Sections 197C of the Charter. The proposed project area is conterminous with the Edgemere Urban Renewal Area located within the boundaries of Beach 35th Street to the east, Rockaway Freeway and Rockaway Beach Boulevard to South Beach 50th Street and Beach 51st Street to the west, and Jamaica Bay to the north, across 166 acres within the Edgemere neighborhood of Queens, represented by Majority Whip Brooks Powers. The proposed action would implement several goals and recommendations of the Resilient Edgemere Community Plan and an interagency community planning initiative conducted between 2015 and 2017 in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. Key among the goals of that plan are protecting the neighborhood from flooding, creating resilient housing and maintaining the neighborhood's low density feel, improving streets and transit and increased neighborhood amenities. In addition to creating open space and reducing the density of new construction closest to the waterfront, the project is anticipated to create approximately 1,222 residential units on 41 projected development sites. Of those residential units, approximately 673 would be affordable rental and home ownership units on land that is currently owned by the city, and approximately 549 new units of housing would be created on privately owned land. Majority Brooks Powers already provided her remarks on this project. We are joined by Kevin Paris, Stephen Erdman, Paris Starter, forgive me, and Rosa Kelly for HPD, and David Velez and Allison Rodox from VHB. I now recognize the subcommittee council to administer the affirmation, sorry.
Do we have everybody here? I'm seeing 4 people on the screen. 5. We're supposed to have 6. There we are. Please raise your right hands and respond when I call your names. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions? Kevin Paris.
I do.
Stephen Erdman.
I do.
Paris Strotter.
I do.
Rosa Kelly.
I do.
David Velez.
I do.
And Allison Ruddock.
I do.
Thank you.
The PowerPoint presentation will be loaded when you call for it. You all may begin.
Again, Councilmember De La Rosa is here if she would like to vote on LU 52.
Yes, please. I vote aye.
Thank you. So the votes on that is 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, with 0 abstentions, and the vote on that is now closed.
Thank you, Council. The PowerPoint presentation will be loaded. You all can call for it and you all may begin.
Yes, I'd like to have the PowerPoint brought up. We're ready. Awesome. Thank you. Good morning, council members. And thank you for giving us some of your time to discuss the Resilient Edgemere Community Plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. The Resilient Edgemere Initiative is an interagency community-based effort to align New York City's climate change resiliency investments in Edgemere with a long-term and comprehensive community visioning for the neighborhood. Edgemere is particularly vulnerable to significant climate events such as coastal storms and sea level rise, which has and continues to cause physical and financial distress to the community. The Resilient Edgemere Initiative, as well as its culminating plan, continues to be the city's effort to address these significant conditions. Next slide, please. Thanks. The Resilient Edgemere Community Plan identifies a land use framework and a set of strategies to create resilient and affordable housing for a range of household incomes and sizes, as well as increase retail and community facility offerings, mitigate future flood risk, increase waterfront open space, and improve the coastal ecology. Through these measures, the plan positions Edgemere into the larger city vision to improve the ability of flood-prone neighborhoods to withstand and recover quickly from future storms. Next slide, please. The land use strategy proposed in this application seeks to push future development and density away from Jamaica Bay to more appropriate locations further inland. When looking at Edgemere through this lens, we have identified planning areas and proposed specific actions within each of these areas. Within our most vulnerable areas in Edgemere, we have proposed a set of downzonings that will limit future development. Coupled with these downzonings, we have proposed a new special coastal risk district to further limit development. We have identified Rockaway Beach Boulevard as an appropriate location to capture some of this displaced density potential. So we are proposing a modest upzoning as part of this application. Within these upzoned areas, MIH will be applied and enforced. Just mentioning that this proposal seeks to take the most conservative actions necessary to ensure proper development occurs within the Edgemere community. Next slide, please. So looking at the zoning actions more closely, this ULIP application seeks to downzone the areas closest to Jamaica Bay, which here you'll see is the hazard mitigation area from its existing R41 and R4 into R3A. The existing R4 within the limited development area to an R41, and portions of the existing R4, C81, and R5, C1-2 within the commercial corridor are modestly upzoned to R6A. Next slide, please. In addition to the zoning changes that I just detailed, this application also seeks a UDAP designation for select sites, as well as amending the urban renewal plan and proposing disposition authority for all city-owned sites within the project area. Next slide, please. So the city's work within Edgemere continues to be a multi-agency effort. In wake of the devastating effects of Superstorm Sandy, the city has invested into Edgemere and the peninsula as a whole to make it more protected from flood events, as well as more accessible to natural amenities. These investments have taken the shape of improving the park spaces at Bayswater and Rockaway Community Park, the reconstruction of the Rockaway Beach Boardwalk, improving the pedestrian sidewalk and roadways along Rockaway Beach Boulevard from Beach 73rd Street to Beach 88th Street, the continued sewer and road condition improvements occurring between Beach 49th and Beach 59th Street, the rehabilitation, reconstruction, and elevation of approximately 109 damaged homes from Superstorm Sandy, as well as the ongoing work of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to protect the peninsula from long-term erosion through coastal protection projects along the Atlantic coast between East Rockaway Inlet and Jamaica Bay. The goals of this proposal seek to continue to build upon these investments to the Edgemere community. Next slide, please. And as we highlight the city's investment into the Edgemere community, I would like to reference a key initiative that is further advanced through this land use proposal. One key goal that had been identified by community members as part of the Resilient Edgemere Community Planning Initiative was to identify those city-owned sites that could be included in a community land trust or CLT, and then work with local organizations to develop a model for future CLT ownership to facilitate long-term affordability as well as resilient land management. Here, the city's availability of land within Edgemere, coupled with having an active urban renewal plan, presents us with a viable opportunity to move forward with this recommendation. Within Edgemere, there are a total of 119 lots that the CLT could acquire, proposing that 62 of the lots available will be for residential affordable home ownership development, 55 lots for open space programming, and 2 lots that can permit commercial uses. Next slide, please. So I want to thank everyone for some of your time to go over this initiative. Just also want to note that we have all of the Councilmember Brooks Powers questions that were presented earlier, and we plan to address most of them during the Q&A session, and anything that we're not able to answer, we'll get back to the council in writing as a follow-up.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Council, I have a few questions, and after that, you can let me know if there's any other members with their hands raised for questions. My first question is, this project as submitted to the council would introduce over 1,000 new units of housing. Given the risk of climate change, why is it appropriate to introduce so much new housing to the Rockaway Peninsula in this and other recent city-sponsored projects?
So I would like to add that, so this proposal is currently proposing an increase of approximately, as you said, over 1,000 units through the rezoning. I just want to reference that this is looking at both the UDAP sites and a privately owned site. So it's a balance of units between those 2 areas. On the UDAP sites, it's approximately 530 units. And again, what we're looking at is sort of shifting the development potential that already exists towards the bay to a more appropriate location within the community. And these actions are coupled with other resilient measures that are taking place out in this community to further protect both the existing residents as well as the future residents coming as part of future developments in the area.
So as you mentioned, the UDAP proposed as part of this project would result in the construction of over 500 units of affordable housing. However, the project summary provides that all units will be affordable to families earning between 60% and 130% AMI, and does not specify whether the units will be rentals or co-ops. So I wanted to know, why is HPD requesting such an open-ended project approval?
So one key thing that's going to happen on these UDAP sites at a future date is that these sites will go through our request for proposals process or an RFP process. And one of the key steps in that process is our community visioning process, where we go out into the community and engage with the community members to really detail what the vision of those sites should be. And we culminate all of the feedback that we get from the community members into a community visioning report that's tacked on as part of the RFP document that goes out to the development community. And then the development community responds to what the community says that they want to see on those sites. So the programming for these sites have not been determined yet. What was referenced as part of the document materials pretty much is it leaves open the broad spectrum of all of the programs that HPD currently has, so that when we go through that community process and we hammer out what the programming that the community would like to see on these sites would be, it would still fall within that area that's part of this application now, that the development community would then have to be responsive to.
So you mentioned community. I hope you guys won't make a decision without really involving them, having a real conversation. So Community Board 14 expressed a clear preference for home ownership, affordable housing as part of this project. Are you all exploring ways to increase home ownership in the plan? I know you mentioned some of it, but for the record, if you could go into that a little bit more.
Right. So, and I'll sort of like separate it a little bit. So as we said, the CLT component has its number of units that's going to be for affordable home ownership. We have also publicly committed and constantly messaged that the sites that's going to be part of this RFP, we are looking into exploring the ability of home ownership. As we go through that community visioning process, we understand that, we're going to hear that again as part of being the request and the need. so that we would be prioritizing home ownership as part of the community, as part of the competitive review process when we see that that comes out as part of what the community wants to see. So when we go through the RFP process and we are soliciting responses to that, we would have a priority on those responses that have a home ownership component as part of their plan.
And why wasn't the approach to do this before today's conversation? Why is this happening after the conversation? If you could elaborate more on that.
You're referring to as far as not going in. So these sites are, if I'm understanding the question correctly, these sites are not currently slated to go through our RFP process. They are part of our RFP pipeline. And we've had engagement with the community as it relates to the overall Resilient Edgemere plan. And this is a segment of that conversation that's going to continue through even when we get to the RFP process and following the RFP process. So there has been conversation, and we've heard some of the sentiments that the council member has already shared here today as well for home ownership, and we expect to continue to hear that as we go through our continued engagement with the community.
I think a larger conversation needs to be had regarding this. So you may have had a conversation. I know you heard from Majority Brooks Powers, but a larger conversation needs to happen. It needs to be in depth. This is my last question before we go to other members. Is HPD considering using this resiliency planning approach, packing resiliency improvements and reducing density in vulnerable areas with planning for affordable housing and other community needs in other neighborhoods in the future?
Yeah, I can take this question. Thank you, Chair. There may be other communities where this is appropriate. That said, this community is somewhat special because HPD has so much property here. And in that way, it's very, very unique. But, we're certainly open to using this approach in other areas. It's a conversation that we've had and that we're having with both the Department of City Planning as well as the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Resiliency and Justice. I forget their exact name.
Something like that.
But yeah, thank you.
I do have one last question. So regarding flooding, my stepfather lives in this area, so this is near and dear to me. So I wanted to know, what are the flood protection measures planned for the community by city and state and federal agencies for the project area? What is the evacuation plan?
So I can speak a little bit on, and very briefly on what I referenced earlier, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers coastal protections for Edgemere. They have a combination of hard and green infrastructure designed to protect against flooding within the coastal area. I don't have the specifics in front of me. I can get back to the council on what that actually looks like, but there is a plan generated to protect the community from flooding. And I can also get back to the council on the second part of your question as far as evacuation plans.
I just want to let you know there are still residents in that area still going through things. So you may want to address some of that before you continue those conversations. Council, are there any other council members with questions?
Councilmember Nurse has questions.
I just actually have one question. If it's possible for us to have that deck sent to us that you presented?
Yes, that deck is with council now.
Okay, thank you.
We'll make sure it gets to all members of the committee. If there are any other council members who have questions, please raise your hands now. I see no other council member questions.
Council, are there any members of the public that would like to ask questions?
There are members of the public, but if you would like to excuse this panel, I will then call them.
Sorry, my computer blacked out for a second. So I want to thank this panel for their testimony. This panel is now excused.
Okay.
And I'll hand it back to you, Council, just in case members of the public want to share anything.
Thank you. Our first panel is Assemblywoman, Assemblywoman Stacy Pfeffer, Dolores Orr, Jacqueline Rogers, and Sonia Moyes. So when we see them all on screen, the assembly member can start this panel.
Good morning, Assembly Member. You can start.
Time starts now.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Chair Lewis. It's great to see you. Thank you for having this hearing. Before I even get started, I just hope your stepfather is my constituent. Just want to throw that out there. Thank you for this opportunity. I do appreciate this time regarding the Edgeme Resiliency Program. First, I want to say my dynamic City Council woman, Sylvina Brooks Powers, Majority Whip, absolutely gave a fabulous testimony and gave a lot of sentiment of what she heard from the town hall meeting that she hosted last night. I'm going to give a formal testimony, so I'm just going to do what I do best, is just talk out of my heart today and the needs of my community. I'm against this project in the sense of nothing to do with the resiliency. And I think what I've been hearing from your questions and HPD's response, and I think they've worked hard on this project, I don't take away from the efforts put in, is that we're covering, or we're talking about resiliency in the sense that we do need resiliency in this community. We need storm protection, but not at the expense of overdevelopment that's continuing. We're talking about this Edgeme project in a vacuum where there is so much development that has been approved upzone between the Peninsula Hospital site and downtown Far Rockaway. And for a lot of possibly new city council members, there's been a lot of upzoning going on. So we're talking about all these benefits, which are true benefits of having resilient buildings and looking at infrastructure differently, but we're not looking at the part that you yourself said, Chair, that 1,000 new units of housing, in addition to all the upzone, which is probably about 4,000 units of housing, in addition to what's being able to be built as of right. And there is definitely an overdevelopment going on here. And my community board chair, Dolores Orr, is on for testimony in this panel, and she will speak about what our own community board has voted on and spoke up about. And I completely support my community board and their participation, as they are the community, and that's why they're there. But from the point of view of Peninsula, I'm sorry, what? Oh,
you can keep going, Assembly Member.
I'm sorry. So I just want to touch on that. And I think we have to look at the promises that were made that were broken. So there's families that are living here 17 years in houses that never saw the building, the supermarkets, the commercial. Now we're hearing about all this wonderful commercial development that's going to come with it. Again, we're mirroring the fact that thousands of people are coming to an island. And I don't want to talk about sinkholes and things like that, but you know, there's not been a long impact study of an entire island peninsula of what's happened to it. You yourself mentioned an evacuation plan. I could talk about city people, again, a person who's been born and raised on this peninsula. It's been an issue that we talked about for years, and there's not been a clear evacuation plan made. Yes, as Kevin Morris said, the Army Corps of Engineers is making a more resilient community, and they are working on projects that are 20 years old. But if there was a big storm that came tomorrow on the news, we would be stepping on each other to get off this peninsula. There's nowhere to park. So there's many emergency efforts from I would say from the Office of Emergency Management that is not being addressed on this peninsula. Evacuations of our students, of our children, of our schools. So we are building a resilient area, and there's much needed work, but it's at least 20 and 30 years behind the investment that should have been made on this peninsula. Our infrastructure, our transportation. As a member of the Corporations Council in the state, I have yet to have a conversation telling me how much more they're adding to our buses and subway use, though there's a new subway plan which is going to reduce, but meanwhile there's thousands of people moving to this peninsula. Take any weekend of good weather, and I'm not just talking this summer, you can't even move around this peninsula. So I'm not sure when we develop, and I'm going to keep saying overdevelopment, and I think you're the expert in the chair as chair of land use, but there's definitely something lacking in a comprehensive plan from one end of the peninsula, which I do represent from one side of the ocean to the other side of what's being developed in the safety and well-being of the people. Additionally, I say this as a sarcastic statement, a little salty, a little sassy, that's who I am. But with all the development going on, I haven't heard about the check amount for the Board of Education to my school's investment. I haven't heard about DOT investing in money in that part of it. You know, there's no investment going on in our community we're going to develop and then later on. And I believe some of that happened in downtown Brooklyn when it was being developed, that after the fact, schools and conversations were happening. So we're not getting any of that. Our services, the quality of life that the people who've been living here, investing here, and I see Jacqueline's on, and she'll talk about being a person who bought a home 17 years ago. Last point being is that I'm a person who's benefited from living in a Mitchell-Lama co-op for 31 years. And if I tell you about generational wealth, I've only afforded myself the life I have because I've been able to live in an ownership apartment and have invested in my pension, pay down debt, because I've lived in this kind of lifestyle for 31 years. We've been fighting for that. There should be much more home ownership and that quality of bringing generational wealth. There's 5 housing developments on this peninsula. There's additional supportive, 17 nursing homes, 12 adult homes, and all of that and everything else on this peninsula should be developed as home ownership. Any other plan is unacceptable. It cannot be on the backs of my community. That's my quick. I want to give it to my community and my chairs, but I want to thank you for this opportunity. This is a very, very important hearing. I'm available for any other discussions to any city council people. But again, thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to working further and any other clarity we need on this point, and I leave it to the rest of my panel that's here. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly Member. I'll yield to the council if there's any other members of the public.
Thank you.
The next person testifying is Dolores Orr.
Time starts now.
Good morning and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dolores Orr. I am Chair of Community Board 14, representing the 130 residents who currently live on the peninsula. Like Stacy, I was born and raised and have lived my whole life in this community. So I first want to say that we support, without a doubt, the downzoning that this project calls for and New York City's decision to retreat from the Bay to keep our residents safe. That being said, on February 8th, the board opposed all upzoning changes that are defined in the resilient Edgewater, Edgemere Community Initiative. And why do we do that? Because there are 12,000 units that have been built or will be built in the next 3 years. That brings us 30,000 more residents estimated. We have the longest commute to Manhattan, if that's where you want to work. We have one of the highest unemployment rates in New York City with no foreseeable jobs coming. We do not have adequate school seats. Our schools are currently overcrowded, and we have no approved or funding for any planned additional seats. In addition to that, it's been 10 years since Sandy, and OME has yet to give us an evacuation plan. How do you add 30,000 plus another 5,000 on this project to a barrier island and not have an evacuation plan? It would be criminal for us to continue mid to high rise development. Development has to be minimal. This project has been around for a very long time. We also have no reasonable access to any level trauma center.
Time expired.
Get to a trauma center. So I want to say that again, I feel that New York City has failed our Black and Brown communities. The vision for an affordable 2-family home community to live the American dream and build generational wealth is yet again being sidelined for mid-rise rental apartments where only the developer or the landlord grows wealthy. I will end by saying that our motion of February 8th also included the requirement that HPD continue and complete the original development plan of 1 and 2 family homes to provide 100% development of affordable home ownership. Thank you. Oh, can I just say one other thing? I apologize. HPD made a mention of multi-agency effort. There is no multi-agency effort here, none whatsoever. They all work in their own little bubble, and we'll worry about schools when the housing comes. We'll worry about widening the roads after we put the buildings in place. So there is no multi-agency effort whatsoever. Thank you for your time, and we hope you can listen and support the community.
Thank you. The next witness is Jacqueline Rogers.
Time starts now.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to, excuse me, good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jacqueline Rogers. I am a homeowner in the Edgeme community. I am also the president of the Edgeme Alliance. We're a newly formed organization to empower the community and bring economic and true community development to the community. I bought my house under the original Edumar urban renewal. And to say the least, I am totally disappointed. I believe my community has been abused and neglected. And I feel that I and my community members have no confidence in HPD or the city in respect to this resilient Edgemere. I was part of the vision planning, the 15-month vision planning that HPD hosted in the Edgemere community. I personally got 75 homeowners to participate in that vision planning. What came out of that vision planning is not what we asked for. And I will ask if you can vote against this resilient Edgemere. Do not allow any type of upzoning to come into this area. It's a compact area. It's a sandbar area. We have, like Assemblywoman Amato and our chair Dolores Orr for Community Board 14 indicated, we have been promised so much and have not gotten absolutely nothing other than apartments. No stores. We have nothing in our community. It's like, no disrespect to Biloxi, Mississippi in the 1950s. This is New York City. This is Queens. We do not need all this overdevelopment. We need resources. We need community development that can help and uplift this community. We are a sandbar. Homeowners' homes have been impacted by the piling and the driving of piles into the sandbar that we live on, causing structural damages to their homes. No outreach from HPD, no follow-up through HPD. We was promised stores and amenities. You can put the stores and amenities along this area without impacting us with density.
Time expired.
Can I finish, please, as a community resident and as a taxpayer, please? Thank you. Auburn East is going to dwarf and shadow Edgemere. We do not currently have access to our beach. We have not had beach access as far as actually being able to get in the water, but yet and still a developer that HPD basically sold the land to is now going to put 1,600 apartment units in that area, plus the additional Edgemere Commons, which is the former Peninsula site, is bringing 2,000 apartment units. Edgemere is a small community. We're probably just 11 to 12 blocks wide and long, and yet and still they're looking to put all this density apartment buildings in one concentrated area without bringing any kind of full resources to the community. Where is EDC to get jobs into this community? There are people screaming to own their own business. This is a coastal community. We should be built up like other coastal communities so that it becomes a tourist area so that we can benefit from the tourist dollars. We have to do something more than housing. And I pray that you hear us. We are saying no to this upzoning. Please hear us. Please do a tour of this community and see the impact that HPD and the neglect that HPD and the city has put on us for years. We're talking decades of disinvestment. And I really wish somebody come forward and see what we're going through. We do not have the evacuation plan in place. There was a gas leak weeks ago. No communication, no coordinated efforts through the fire department, through the Office of Emergency Management, nothing. They're unfortunately just dumping and building housing stock without adequate wraparound resources for the community. Thank you. I'm sorry to become emotional, but something got to stop. This got to stop. We are being abused out here. I thank you for your time.
Next witness is Sonia Moyes.
Time starts now.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sonia Moyes, and I am the president of Edgeme Community Civic Association. And I have been a Rockaway resident for 44 years. And I have been a homeowner in Edgeme for the past 16 years. Growing up in Far Rockaway, I grew up in NYCC. Okay, and I was fortunate enough to become a homeowner 16 years ago. And I can tell you all of the progress that the peninsula has made. The only progress that the peninsula has not made is within the Edgeme community. We are or have been suffering for years. Edgeme is the only part of Rockaway that has not been developed and has not been developed correctly. We have been basically like the redheaded stepchildren. You know, none of our needs have been met. We have been promised by HPD of what they were going to do, making the entire area 100% home ownership. We were told that we would be given retail stores, a supermarket, parks. We were told there were going to be a school that was made, that was going to be built. And instead of the school being built, which is basically on my block, you know, we had a COVID testing site, and that came out of nowhere, and none of the residents were notified. We have been neglected. We are never notified of anything. We have been fighting for years with HPD, with the city, with elected officials, with the local elected officials about what our needs are. Now, all of a sudden, HPD wants to come out of nowhere after Sandy to change the plans, not once, but twice. Prior to Sandy, there was a plan implemented by HPD. Since then, the plans have changed twice. Within those change of plans, there has not been a repeated environmental impact statement, and which there should be before these plans ever took place. The area with the upzoning that they mentioned, which is between Beach 39th Street and Beach 43rd Street along Rockaway Beach Boulevard, those areas are way too dense. They will cause more damage to the existing homes, and they will cause more flooding in the area. Since Sandy, we have not had, I'm sorry, but can I please continue? I would really appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Since Sandy, we have not had any upgrades. We have had no flood mitigation. There is no evacuation plan for us. And it's just a shame. We have other parts of the community, I should say we have other parts of New York that was flooded. We have parts of Brooklyn that was flooded. We have parts of Staten Island that was flooded. They have flood mitigation in place. What is the issue when it comes to Far Rockaway, when it comes to the section of Edgeme, when it comes to the east part of Rockaway? I'm starting to feel as if we are being discriminated against because of the community because of the people who makes up the community. The Rockaway Peninsula, sadly, is very divided, I should say. On the east part of Rockaway, we are suffering. You go towards the west, they have everything that is that's built. What they ask for is what they get. The roads are better. They have better infrastructure. They have better when it comes to retail, right? They have all those retails. They have all those amenities. You come to the east part of Rockaway. What do you want to do? What does HPD always want to do? You want to dump on the east part of Rockaway. We have tons of buildings that's going up. We have tons of apartments Why is it that you want to put 5 to 8 story buildings in the dense area of Edgemere? It's totally uncalled for. It's totally useless. We have been begging for years. HPD promised us the things that we would get, which is amenities. We want a school. We do not have another hospital. At least give us an urgent care center. But you want to overpopulate the area when you have nothing for the people who are moving into the area. No schools, no supermarkets, no retail. What about the people who want to own businesses? We don't have a bank that's here. Give us the things that we need to thrive so we can create generational wealth. What we have right now is absolutely nothing. HPD promised us our amenities. Those are the things that we want. Now, as president of Edgemere Community Civic Association, we wrote the board, we wrote HPD, we wrote all of our elected officials, and the community is not in favor of the upzoning of the Resilient Edgemere project. The upzoning, which includes R4, R5, C1 to C2, C8 -1, R6A, and that's C2-4 with plans to bring 6 to 8 story mixed use buildings with 530 dwelling units, 54,665 square feet of commercial space, and 266 parking spaces. The community feels this upzoning will bring potential flooding, damage to the structure of surrounding homes due to the density in the areas of Beach 39th Street to Beach 43rd Street along Rockaway Bridge Boulevard, increased pollution, increased noise pollution, quality of life issues, overpopulation, an increase in flood and homeowners insurance premiums due to the flooding and home damage during and after construction, and hardship when it comes to transportation.
Thank you.
So all I'm saying is just please listen to the folks that live in the community that we have been fighting, and just we're just frustrated. And I'm sorry, but
I get it. Let me say, I get it. Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else?
Are there any council members who have questions for this panel? Seeing none, we thank everyone for their testimony, and this panel is dismissed, and then we will call the next panel, which will be Glenn DeResto, Wanda Warden, Amber Clinkscales, Marvin Elias, and Chantandrea Blissett. So when we see those witnesses, we can begin. Just wait one moment for them all to enter the hearing room. We'll begin with Glenn DeResto.
Time starts.
Good morning. HPD and the City Council needs to understand we as Rockaway residents are on a barrier peninsula with limited job, healthcare, and transportation opportunities. And we could only grow so much without having a drastic negative effect on our current and future residents. This area of the Rockaways has already been approved for large-scale developments and extremely limited homeownership opportunities for residents. Downtown Far Rockaway will have 3,200 units. Edgemere Commons, 2,050 units. Arverne East, 1,650 units. Now we're talking about another 1,000 units with Resilient Edgemere. As residents, we are deeply concerned about the clustering of affordable rental units with limited opportunities for moderate and middle income households who seem to be forgotten about. Additionally, almost all the 8,000 units, there is only a few hundred of them available for home ownership opportunities. The amount of affordable rental units far exceeds other areas in New York City. And the city of New York has not studied the cumulative effect of all these different developments at once. They've studied them all separately. They're all right next to each other. They have not studied in a holistic way the cumulative effect this is having on us. With that said, the Rockaway community desperately needs affordable homeownership opportunities to be a major part of any development going forward to ensure and promote economic integration, ensure economic stability and long-term vitality of the community, and it will not displace anybody.
Time.
I leave you with this. You give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man how to fish and he eats for a lifetime. So I ask that in its current form that you please vote no on this project, and please make affordable homeownership a major part of any developments going forward in the Rockaways. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person testifying will be Wanda Warden.
Time starts. Ms. Warden, you're on mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, yes. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Wanda Warden. I am a 50-year plus resident of the Rockaways. I'm afraid. I'm very afraid of the overdevelopment that is going on. We are in a food desert. We are in a transportation desert. The 2,250 units coming where the old Peninsula Hospital site is, the 1,650 units that's coming with Auburn East, in addition to all the other builds that are coming. I am also a community board member, and we do not support this. I do not support this. I thank our councilwoman, Majority Whip Brooks Powers, Stacy Pfeffer Amato, Dolores Orr, Sonia Moyes, everyone that spoke, I support that. We do not support this overdevelopment, and we have no way to get off of this peninsula in case of emergency. I'm afraid, okay? And I please ask that you vote no. Thank you so much for my time, for your time.
Thank you. The next witness will be Amber Clinkscales.
Time starts.
Good day, everyone. I'm just going to reiterate very lightly, I agree with a lot of the panelists on here. I vote no against it. HPD, also, we held a meeting yesterday. There's so many questions that we have. Reiterating back on the home ownership, will HPD renovate or restore many of the zombie properties that they currently have throughout Far Rockaway so that local residents may have the opportunity to acquire them? And please excuse the background noise. I'm currently traveling on MTA train. The second question I have is, being aware of climate change and the environmental disparities that we have in the Rockaways, will HPD encourage the developers to use sustainable materials that are in accordance with what we are fighting for right now in climate change? Will that be initiated and encouraged in these projects? Will HPD initiate another meeting with the community, the residents, so that we all can voice our concerns directly with HPD so that they can answer the appropriate questions that we've been asking? Thank you.
Thank you. The next witness will be Chantandrea Blissett.
Time starts.
Good morning. My name is Chantandrea Blissett, and I've lived in Rockaway for 49 years. I grew up out there, and I've seen a very beautiful community. Edgemere was once one of the quietest communities. We were always small, very quiet homeowners, and I'm seeing the changes, and like everyone else, I do not agree with the changes. I do not want the council to vote for this because I do believe it is disrespectful. I do believe that when we go to vote, when you go into the polling center, you don't see very many people. I think that is the attitude. Well, they don't vote, so we can do whatever we want out here. The people don't care. Well, that's not true. I grew up out there. I'm a principal of a high school in Brooklyn, Bushwick, actually. I have to leave my home community to travel to go to Brooklyn to work. When I shop outside of my area of Edgeme. There used to be a sea town right within walking distance and a laundromat. I've got to go 2 towns over now to buy and shop. That shouldn't be. All of our dollars are leaving our community, and it keeps us impoverished. It keeps us in a situation where we're not really working together as a community. Another thing about home ownership, we're talking a lot about home ownership. It's also important that we sell to people who are actually planning to live in the homes. Because it's one thing to have homeowners, it's another thing to sell to someone who's just gonna kind of rent out the house. So now you're living next door to people who don't own, and you're dealing with the same situation as if you're living next door to a huge building. So all these things need to be considered, and some respect needs to be paid to the people who have lived and worked in Edgemere for many years. Many of my neighbors have lived there for years. And I think we deserve more than this. And we do vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next witness will be Marvin Elias.
Time starts.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Marvin. I live in the Edgeme community. I'm relatively new to the community. I've only lived out here for 18 years as a new homeowner. One of the things that really strikes me about this conversation, and it's a conversation that we've had over and over, is that I can never find anyone who lives in this community that votes in the affirmative for any of these development projects. But yet still, it seems to be a conversation and we seem to have over and over and over and over again. So I'm not sure who's pushing the underlying agenda that these are things that they think that we need in this community. I've seen, over the years, what I've seen in a small, middle income community, people take pride in home ownership. And I think one of the things that gets lost in these large developments where there aren't any homeowners is pride in sweeping your street and keeping your sidewalks clean, et cetera, et cetera. These are things that are lost out when there's a push to just monetize the available resources that are here without having a true sense of what we want in this community, where people with kids want to have safety and they want to have things that they can do on weekends. We don't need any more lower income housing. If you move to places, Rockaway Park, I just happened to drive through Rockaway Park a few weeks ago. The disparity in the development in that neighborhood compared to this, we appear to be a third world country if you just drive through some of those communities. There aren't any huge developments. And the question is, why? Why continually are we being forced to have to defend the things that we want if no one in HPD ever seems to listen? We need things that you aren't proposing. And when we request these things, nothing ever gets done. We need community centers. We need libraries. We need playgrounds. These are things that we need. We don't need an additional 40,000 people trying to escape the Rockaways on effectively 3 roads of egress during the summer months. It's insane. If you try to, it takes me 40 minutes just to get out of the Rockaways to any of the major highways, and then an additional 2 minutes just to drive to downtown Brooklyn. Why does it take 40 minutes? Because we just do not have the infrastructure in place for these things, and bringing in an additional 30,000 plus residents, it's not what we need. We don't want it. We don't want it. I don't know anyone who anywhere has been okay with these, these sort of requests to have these developments brought into place. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you to everyone for their testimony. This panel is excused if there are no council member questions. We'll just wait 1 second for that. I see no council member questions, so this panel is excused. Thank you for your testimony. Our next panel will be Leonard Yard, Jason Greenberg, and we have an unknown caller. If you're on the phone and have not put in your name, we will admit you now. When we see these panelists in the meeting, we will begin. Again, Leonard Yard. Let's see. 1 second, please. Is Jason Greenberg in the room? If Jason Greenberg is in the room, could you please raise your hand? None of these witnesses are responding. We'll give it just 1 more second. The meeting will stand at ease. Again, we have an unknown caller if you wish to speak. If you're on the phone, you've been asked, given permission to speak, please speak now. All right, these witnesses are not responding, so we'll say there are no more public witnesses signed up for the...
I'm sorry, Council. Assemblymember Amato has her hand up.
The assembly member there?
Hi, yes, I just wanted to tell you that Jason Greenberg was my team member who was just signing up, I guess, for me. So I just wanted you to be clear that he's not a panelist or he's not a person speaking. Okay.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. All right, Chair, there are no more public witnesses for this application.
Thank you, Council. I want to take the time to thank Assemblymember Amato for standing with your community and for your leadership, as well as Majority Whip Brooks Powers. Thank you, Dolores, Jacqueline, Sonia, Wanda, Amber, Glenn, Marvin, Andrea, for your testimonies today. Seeing no other members of the public wish to testify, LU's numbers 68 through 71 for the Resilient Edgeme project. This hearing is now closed. That concludes today's business. I remind you that if you have written testimony on today's items, you may submit it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number or the project name in the subject heading. I would like to thank the applicants, members of the public, my colleagues, subcommittee, council, land use staff, and Sergeant at Arms for participating in today's hearing. This meeting is now adjourned.